Richard quickly figured me out and did everything he could to turn Lyndall against me. They were married 6 months later. It's your problem too, Dad. If you cancel the sale, we'll have to sue the buyers. It'll cost you a lot of money and nerves. In your condition, it could lead to another stroke. Now she was trying to intimidate me. Typical Lyndall tactic. If things don't go well, push guilt or fear. Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. But there's one thing you didn't take into account. What do you mean? There was irritation in her voice. There are hidden cameras in my house, said slowly. Everything you do is recorded. What? She almost shrieked. My adcat's already filed a report with the police. Emrana honesty. Wrongful sale of property. There was a deafening silence. I could almost see Lyndall frantically pondering his situation, trying to find a way out. You're bluffing, Sheffnally said, but her voice shook. There aren't any cameras in your house. There are, I answered confidently. In the anti-room, in the statita room, in my office, and in the backyard. It was true. After a series of burglaries in our neighborhood a few years ago, I had installed a state-of-the-art security system. The cameras were small and discreet, but they recorded everything in high quality. The recordings were stored not only on the home server, but also in the cloud, which Terrence and I had access to. I don't believe it, Lyndall said, but her voice sounded less confident. You've always been against this kind of thing. Said it was an invasion of privacy. People change, I said, especially when they're stolen by their own children. I heard her draw in a sharp intake of air. I wasn't stealing from you. I was trying to help. You can't live alone after a stroke. It's dangerous. It's not up to you. Then who's? Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to cook, clean, make sure you take your meds? I'll get help, I said, with my own money, not yours. Daddy, you don't understand? Her voice beckoned pleading. We were doing it for your own good. I questioned. Is Richard in on this too? Lyndall was silent, and the pause was long enough for an answer. Sure, I continued. Whose idea was it, yours or his? It doesn't matter, she mumbled. We're a family. We make decisions together. Family doesn't steal from each other. Dad, listen. Lyndall started, but I interrupted her. No, you listen. I'm going to give you one chance. I'll give it back. I want my deposit back. Explain. You made a mistake. That's impossible, she exclaimed. I told you we've already spent some of the money. On what? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Pause for the down payment on Pine Hills. Lies, I said. For what exactly? Another long pause. Richard had some debts, she finally said quietly. We used some of the money to pay them off, but it's only temporary. We'll pay it all back as soon as his new business starts turning a profit. I grinned bitterly. Another of Richard's brilliant business ideas. How many have there been already? 10? 15 all failed. What business this time? I asked, not hiding my sarcasm. Importing environmentally and lean building materials from Scandinavia, Lyndall answered quickly. It's a growing market. Richard has already found suppliers and is negotiating with local developers. In a few months, we will triple the amount invested. It's the same old thing. Loud promises, minimal knowledge of the market, complete lack of experience in his chosen field. Classic Richard. How much did you take? I asked. What? How much money have you spent so far? Lyndall hesitated. $100,000. She finally admitted, but we'll get it back. I swear, Daddy, $100,000. The money they stole from me by selling my house without my consent. My own daughter. You have 3 days, I said. Why anger throbbing in my temples. Get the money back and cancel the sale, or I won't make a report to the police. You won't do that. Her voice sounded less than confident. You wouldn't send your own daughter to prison. Check me, Dad, think of the grandchildren. What happens to Oliver and Isabella if their mother goes to prison? This is Lyndall's last weapon. My grandchildren. The only people in this world besides Eleanor that I loved unconditionally. They'll be better off without a mother to teach them how to fight, I said, though my insides clenched at the thought of what it would do to the children. You monster, Lyndall screamed. You always shave bin. All my life you thought only of yourself, of your money, of your precious house. Never about me, never about our family. Old accusations, old grudges. I've heard them 1,000 times. 3 days, I repeated. After that, I'll talk to the lie, Daddy, please. Her voice suddenly became pitiful. We can't get the money back so soon. Give us at least a month. 3 days, I was adamant. And no contact with the QA Pats of the house. My advocate's already in touch with them. It was a bluff. I didn't know if Terence had already talked to the buyers, but Lyndall didn't need to know that. That's impossible, she exclaimed again. Where are we going to get $100,000 in 3 days? Sell your house, I suggested. Or Richard's car, the one I gave him for Christmas. You know, we can't do that. We've got a mortgage. The kids go to private school. Not my problem. I could feel the fatigue coming in waves. The conversation was taking its toll. 3 days, Lyndall. Don't call until you're ready to pay the money back. Dad, wait. She sounded desperate. Let's talk about this. There has to be some kind of compromise. Compromise was possible before you sold my house behind my back, I said. It's too late now. But I'm your daughter, she exclaimed. Your only daughter. Would Yao send me to prison for money? Not for money, I said. Because of betrayal. With these words, I pressed the end button. The phone immediately rang again, but I didn't answer it. After the third ring, it went silent. I leaned back on the pillows, feeling a mixture of anger, frustration, and deep sadness. My own daughter, flesh and blood, the only living person linking me to Eleanor. What have I done wrong? Where did I go wrong in raising her? Did I really pay too little attention to her? Or, on the contrary, too pampered? Did not teach to appreciate what you have? Did not show that in life you need to earn, not just take? The phone rang again. This time it was Terence. Gideon, he said without preamble. I've been going over the security footage. Lyndall did bring some people to the house, some potential buyers, and some man in a suit, maybe a realtor or a notary. I know, I said. She called it in. She sold the house for $8,510,000 and the car too. God damn it, Terence swore. Without power of attorney, without your consent, that's fraud. Yeah. I gave her 3 days to get the money back and cancel the deal. Then we're going to the police. Terence is quiet. Are you sure you want to go down this road, Gideon? It's your daughter. I'm sure, I said firmly. She has to realize that actions have consequences. Okay, Terence sighed. I'll contact the buyers of the house and explain the situation. They'll probably cancel the contract themselves when they find out that Lyndall had no right to sell the property. Thank you. What about the car? Something. Got it. I'm on it. You rest up and get your strength back. We said goodbye and I put my phone on the nightstand. Outside the window, dusk was falling. The day was coming to an end, one of the hardest days of my life. A nurse peeked into the room to give me my evening injection. Is everything all right, Mr. Townsend? She asked, noticing the look on my face. You look upset. See my family problems, I answered. She nodded understandingly. The hardest, but you're recovering very well. Dr. Rivera says that if you keep this up, you should be discharged in a week. I nodded, wondering what was waiting for me at home. Or rather, was home waiting for me? Would Lyndall keep his word and cancel the sale? Or would she decide she was bluffing as much as I was? Who would have thought that at 78 I would have to fight my own daughter for the right to live in a house I built myself? Life is full of irony. I closed my eyes, feeling the medication administered by the nurse begin to take effect, plunging me into a sleepy stupor. My last thought before falling asleep was of Eleanor. What would she say when she saw what our daughter had become? And what would she advise me to do? I didn't know fiends were, but I was sure of one thing. I wouldn't let Lyndall take away the last thing that connected me to the past, to the life we'd built with Eleanor, even if I had to send my own daughter to prison to do it. The next morning brought clarity to both my head and few other. Sunlight streamed through the hospital room window, forming a golden rectangle on the floor. My speech continued to improve. Words still came out slower than usual, but without the painful pauses between syllables. My right hand was doing better too, though my fingers were still clumsy. At 10 o'clock in the morning, a nurse came into the room. "Mr. Townsend, you have visitors. 2 men, one of whom identified himself as your lawyer." "Send them in," I answered, rising up on the pillows. Terence was the first to enter, impeccably dressed as always, carrying a dark leather briefcase. He was followed by a stranger, a stout man in his 40s in a dark blue suit. His weary gaze and straight posture made him look like a policeman. Even without his uniform, Gideon, Terence shook my left hand. "This is Detective Harris from the Fraud Squad." The detective nodded and shook my hand as well. "Mr. Townsend, I'm glad to see you're feeling better. Mr. Holt told me about your situation. I need to ask you a few questions if you don't mind." "Sure." I pointed to the chairs by the bed. "Have a seat." They sat down next to each other and the detective pulled out a small notebook. "Mr. Townsend, do you confirm that your daughter Lyndall Coleman sold your house and car without your consent or knowledge?" "Yes," I answered firmly. "She called Emmy yesterday and reported it to me as a fait accompli. Did Miss Coleman have any legal rights to dispose of your property? Power of attorney, joint ownership, anything like that?" "No, she did not. I never gave her power of attorney. The house and the Carrari registered in my name only." Harris made a note in his notebook. "According to Mr. Holt, do you have video footage of Miss Coleman bringing potential buyers to your house?" I looked at Terence and he nodded. "Yes, I have a video surveillance system installed. Mr. Holt has reviewed the footage and can provide it to you." "He already has," Terence interjected. "I sent the file to Detective Harris this morning." Harris nodded again. "Mr. Townsend, do you know who bought your house? Do you have any information about the buyers?" "No," I shook my head. "Lyndall only said she sold the house for $850,000 and the car for $32,000. She didn't give any details about the buyers." "I see." The detective made another note. "And do you know where the money from the sale is now?" I sighed. Lyndall admitted that she and her husband had already spent $100,000 to pay off some of her husband's debts and finance his new business. The rest, I assume, is still in their possession. Harris raised his eyebrows. "So, not only did they illegally sell your property, but they've already spent some of the money." "Exactly," I confirmed. The detective closed his notebook. "Mr. Townsend, based on the information and video evidence provided, we have every reason to file criminal charges against your daughter for fraud and misappropriation of property. These are serious charges that could result in jail time. Are you sure you want to proceed?" I felt a heaviness in my chest. It's one thing to threaten Lyndall with the police, hoping she'll come to her senses. It's quite another to actually proceed your own daughter. Mr. Holt said you gave Miss Coleman 3 days to return the money and cancel the transactions. Harris continued, "Is that correct?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Yesterday, I told her that if she made things right within 3 days, I wouldn't go to the police, but frankly, I don't believe she can do that." "We've already contacted the buyers of the house," Terence interjected. "The Bennett family." They were shocked to learn that Lyndall had no right to sell the house. They are ready to cancel the deal, but they want to return the deposit, $120,000, and the car? I asked. The buyer of the Cadillac is a collector from Riley. He's also willing to return the car, but he also wants his money back. I nodded. That made sense. But if Lyndall and Richard had already spent $100,000 exactly, Terrence looked worried. They'd have to find that money somewhere to pay back the deposits. Detective Harris closed the notebook and tucked it into the inside pocket of his jacket. Mr. Townsend, I realize this is a delicate situation given that we're talking about your daughter. So what I propose is this. We'll prepare everything to press charges, but we'll wait 3 days as you and your daughter agreed. If by then she's returned the money and canceled the deals, you can decide not to press charges. If not, we'll proceed. Thank you. I was grateful for Theta approach, but I want you to know I'm serious about my intentions. If Lyndall doesn't make things right, I'm prepared to go all the way. I understand. The detective nodded. We'll keep you informed. Feel better, Mr. Townsend. After the detective left, Terrence stayed behind. He looked concerned. Gideon, are you really ready to send Lyndall to prison? I stared out the window for a long time before I answered. You know, Terrence, when Eleanor was dying, she made me promise. Take care of our little girl, she said. All these years I've tried to honor that promise. Gave Lyndall money when she needed it. Helped with the down payment on their house. Paid for the grandchildren's private school. And what did I get in return? A daughter who waits for me to die so she can get her inheritance. And when I get sick, Tristo steal everything I have. Terrence listened in silence. Maybe I was a bad father. I continued. Maybe I worked too much and didn't spend enough time with her as a child. But that doesn't excuse what she did. Sometimes I think the best thing I can do for her now is to show her that actions have consequences, even if those consequences are painful. I understand, Terrence said quietly. But Preson Gideon, it could ruin her life. And she didn't think about ruining my life, I objected. The house I built with my own hands. The memories of life with Eleanor, everything I had left. She was ready to take that away from me, and shouldn't even think twice about it. Terrence sighed. I'm not arguing with you. I just want to make sure. You know what you're doing. I do, I said firmly, and I'm still giving her a chance to make things right. If she finds a way to get the money back and cancel the deals, good. If not, let her take responsibility for her actions. Toward evening, Paul, my neighbor, visited me. He brought a fruit basket and told me that he'd seen things being taken out of my house, including an antique clock from the mantelpiece, a wedding gift from Eleanor's parents. Immediately called Terrence, who promised to check local pawn stores and antique stores. Later, Lyndall called, her voice sounding panicked. Daddy, the police came to see us. They were asking questions about the house, about the sale. What's going on? I warned you, I replied calmly. If you don't cancel the deal and return the money, I'll go to the police. But they're already here, she exclaimed. They said they could press fraud charges against me. That's a felony, Daddy. Yes, fraud is a felony, he agreed. And that's exactly what you committed. She started threatening, begging, accusing me of callousness, reminding me of my grandchildren, but I was adamant. You have 2 days to return the money and cancel the deals. Otherwise, there will be consequences. Richard called next, trying to find a compromise. He even offered to sell their house to give the money back to the buyers. But when I mentioned the items taken out of the house, especially the watch, he seemed genuinely surprised. I didn't know about that, he mumbled. Lyndall said she was only going to take some pictures and personal items that belonged to her. The next morning, Terrence came in with news. He'd found me watching an antique store. Lyndall had sold it for $8,000. What's More, she'd withdrawn $200,000 from the joint account. Gideon, I don't want to alarm you, but there is a possibility that Lyndall is planning to escape, Terrence said. That same day, Detective Harris said they launched a formal investigation. Lyndall was fingerprinted and photographs were taken for the police file. She was released on her own recognizance, but if she did not return the money and cancel the transactions within a specified time, she would be charged with fraud, theft, and misappropriation of property. That evening, Lyndall arrived at the hospital, pale with eyes rimmed with tears. "Daddy, you can't do this to me," she said, sitting down next to the bed. "It would ruin my life. Think of the children." "You should have thought of the children before." "You committed the crime," I replied. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Her voice shook. I don't know what came over me." Richard said this was a great opportunity, that we could finally get out of debt, that you couldn't live on your own after your stroke anyway, and you decided the best way out was to sell my house behind my back. I shook my head. "Lyndall, you could have just stuck to me, ask for help. I would have listened." "You never listen," she exclaimed. "You always do things your own way, like you're doing now." I grinned bitterly. We looked at each other for a long time. Two stubborn people, two towns. Ends unable to give ein. "What do you want from me?" She asked at last. "I want you to return all the money, cancel the deals, and return all the things you took from the house," I answered. "Including the watch you sold." "I can't," she whispered. "The money, most of it has already been spent or transferred to Richard's investments. And the watch, the store had already sold it to some collector." I closed my eyes, feeling everything inside clench with pain. The watch that meant so much to Eleanor and me was now in some stranger's possession. "Then I can't help you," I said. "Save consequences, Lyndall. They always have. Are you really going to let your daughter be sent to prison?" Her voice was barely audible. "No," I answered, looking her straight in the eye. "I'm not going to let you go to prison. You're sending yourself there by your actions and your refusal to undo what you've done." Lyndall stood up, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You never really loved me," she said. "You always cared more about money, work, home, everything but me. Everything. But me. That's not true," I said quietly. "I loved you more than anything in the world. I still do. That's why I can't let you ruin my life thinking that you can steal and cheat with impunity. Goodbye, Daddy," she said, and walked out of the room without looking back. I knew I would probably never see her again, at least not on the outside. The thought hurt at my heart, but I was determined to see it through. Sometimes love means allowing a person to face the consequences of their actions, even if those consequences are painful. Especially if those consequences are painful. Friday, the day of my discharge from the hospital, came clear and warm. Dr. Rivera gave me one last checkup, nodding in satisfaction as I effortlessly raised my right arm and coherently answered all of her questions. "Mr. Townsend, your recovery is progressing at an impressive pace," she said, making notes on my chart. "However, there is still a lot of work to be done. You need to continue with speech therapy twice a week and physical therapy 3 times a week, and as we discussed, you should not be alone anytime soon." "I've hired a nurse," I replied. "She'll come during the day and my roommate Paul will stay with me at night. At least at first." Dr. Rivera nodded. "Good. I'll write all the necessary prescriptions and referrals. I'll see you in 2 weeks for a checkup. Paul came to pick me up around noon. His old Ford stopped at the hospital entrance and he helped me into the passenger seat, putting my wheelchair in the trunk. The doctors insisted I use it for the first time, even though I could already walk short distances on my own. "How does it feel to be back in the world of the living?" Paul asked, pulling out of the hospital parking lot. "It's weird," I admitted. It felt like months, not days. We drove through the familiar streets of Chapel Hill, past university campus with its old buildings, past the coffee shops filled with students, past the park where Eleanor and I often walked on weekends. The town lived its normal life, unaware of the drama playing out in my family. Had you heard from Terrence? I asked, looking out the window. Paul hesitated to answer. Yes, he called this morning. He wanted to come to the hospital, but I told him I was on my way to pick you up. He'll be waiting for us at your house. There was something in his voice that made me uneasy. Is something wrong? I'd rather let Terrence. Tell me, Paul said evasively, and I decided not to insist. When we got to my house, Terrence's car was at the gate and a police car was parked next to it. My heart clenched. Something had obviously happened. Terrence and Detective Harris were waiting on the porch. Both had serious looks on their faces. Gideon. Terrence helped me out of the car and into the wheelchair. It's good to see you home. What happened? I didn't waste time with pleasantries. Terrence and the detective looked at each other. Let's go. Inside, Harris suggested. My house greeted me with silence and the faint smell of dust. Everything looked the same as the day the ambulance took me away. The same clutter on the coffee table, the same book open in the middling on the arm of the chair. Only there was no clock on the mantelpiece. Its absence was painfully jarring. We settled down in the living room. Paul made coffee for everyone, and I waited impatiently for an explanation. Gideon, Terrence finally began. We have a problem. Lyndall's disappeared. Why do you mean disappeared? I felt a chill run down my spine. She didn't show up for her scheduled meeting at the police station yesterday, Detective Harris explained. We sent a patrol to her house, but no one was there. Neighbors said they saw her and her husband loading suitcases into the car 2 days ago. Said they were going to a relative's house for the weekend. Are the kids with them? I asked, thinking about the grandchildren. Yes. Harris nodded. We checked. The kids didn't show up for school on Thursday and Friday. We also found that Lyndall closed all her bank accounts and withdrew all her money in cash. Terrence added, and sold her car through a free classified website. The buyer confirmed that he'd paid cash. I leaned back in my chair trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Lyndall had escaped. With my money, with my grandchildren, probably forever. We put out an APB on her, Detective Harris said. But if they've crossed state lines or worse, country lines, they'll be harder to find. Y'all think they might have left the country. I felt panic rising inside. It's possible, Harris admitted. We don't have records of airline tickets purchased in their names, but they could have U.S. Private carriers or crossed the border into Mexico by car. I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of anger and deep sadness. Part of me wanted to scream with rage. The other part, the part that was still a father, was worried about Lyndall and the grandchildren. What now? I asked, opening my eyes. We'll keep looking, Harris assured me, but I have to be honest. If they're well prepared to flee, finding them may be difficult. What about my house, my car? I remembered the immediate problem. That the good news is that the deal on the house wasn't finalized. Terrence said the buyers, the Bennett family, had agreed to drop their claim when they learned of the situation. They lost the deposit, but they realize it's not your foe. I want to meet with them, I said firmly. I want their money back. But Gideon, it's not your responsibility. Terrence objected. Lyndall was supposed to return the deposit. I know she did, but she ran off with my money. The least I can do is compensate the innocent people affected by her actions. Terrence nodded, realizing it was useless to argue. Good. How? Make an appointment. And the Cadillac? I asked. That's a little more complicated. Terrence admitted the buyer had already resolved it to another collector in California. We could sue, but that would take time. I sighed. The car was dear to me, but that seemed like the least of my problems at the moment. Okay, We'll deal with that later. What about the stuff she took from the house? We were able to get the watch back, Terrence said, and his face broke in Toit's first smile of the day. The antique store had agreed to buy it back from the collector he'd sold it to. I felt the tension release a little. Thank you, Terrence. That means a lot, Tom. After Detective Harris left, Terrence stayed behind to discuss next steps. We decided that he would begin the process of legally revoking all powers of attorney and documents that could give Lyndall any rights to my estate in the future. And I think you shall change your will, Terrence suggested. Considering the circumstances, I nodded slowly. The thought of cutting Lyndall out of the inheritance entirely was painful, but inevitable. Yes, you're right, but I want to leave something for my grandchildren. They're not to blame for their mother's actions. We could set up a trust fund for them, Terrence suggested, with the stipulation that they can only access the funds once you reach a certain age and appoint an independent trustee unrelated to Lyndall. I've found some great places for you, Lyndall said, flipping through the brochures with a practiced ease, her voice bright but oddly hurried. This one's especially good. Pine Hills. It even has a pool and a library. And it's not too far from Richard and me, so we can visit you often. Her words felt mechanical, rehearsed. I could barely hold back a snort. Visits? Visits. They never came to see me when I lived just 15 minutes away. What made her think that would change now? But Lyndall didn't notice my frustration. She continued her pitch, talking about all the amazing benefits of nursing homes, all the things I didn't need or care about. The conversation went on for what felt like hours, but I wasn't really listening anymore. My mind had already wandered back to a time when Lyndall wasn't so quick to decide everything for herself. A time when I thought I could still reach her. I remember the first time I noticed that spark in Lyndall, the need to control, to have things her way. She was just 13 years old then. Eleanor and I were planning a family vacation, and I had asked Lyndall where she'd like to go. Simple, right? A family discussion about where to spend a week together. But without a second thought, she answered Lake Lure. We went there last year, I said, hoping to offer something new. How about we try the mountains this year? You've never hiked or tried rock climbing. It could be fun. No, she shot back, her voice firm. The lake is better. I can water ski there. There's nothing to do in the mountains. I reminded her that her mother loved the mountains, that we could make it fun for everyone, but she was resolute. I won't go anywhere else. If we go to the mountains, I won't go at all. Eleanor tried to offer a compromise, but Lyndall refused. In the end, we went to Lake Lure not once, but 2 years in a row. And it became clear to me that Lyndall had learned something from that time. She learned that if she threw a fit, she could get what she wanted. At 16, it was a car. All my friends get cars for their 16th birthdays, she said, as if that was a reason for me to hand over the keys. I tried to teach her the value of hard work, suggesting she get a job and save up half the money for a used car. She didn't take kindly to that. That's not fair, she snapped. Why should I work when you have plenty of money? You're just greedy. It's not about money, Lyndall, I explained. It's about responsibility. If you buy the car with your own money, you'll appreciate it more. She slammed her door and yelled, You just don't love me. The words stung, but I couldn't back down. Still, in the end, Eleanor and I gave in, buying her a used Ford, no questions asked. 3 months later, she crashed it, running a red light. Luckily, she wasn't hurt, but the car was totaled. Instead of taking responsibility, Lyndall blamed the traffic authorities, claiming the intersection was poorly designed. She didn't apologize for the crash. She didn't try to make it right. Instead, she started hinting that she needed a new car. You spoiled her, Eleanor had told me. We both did. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had given Lyndall everything. I didn't have as a child, and now it was turning her into someone I didn't recognize. My parents didn't spoil me. My father was a plumber and my mother worked in a laundry. We lived modestly, but they taught me the value of hard work. When I was 12, my father started taking me to work with him. By the time I was 16, I could install a sink, fix a leaky pipe, and do the work that needed to be done. My father inspired me to pursue construction as a career. He'd always say, "It's better to build something with your hands than to sit behind a desk all day." I studied engineering at a technical college and worked on construction sites to pay for it. I met Eleanor in my 3rd year. She was studying accounting, and we married a year after graduation. The early years were tough. I worked for a small construction company, and we had to make ends meet. But Eleanor always supported me. When Lyndall was born, I was already 32. My business was finally starting to stabilize, but I was still working 12 to 14 hours a day, often including weekends. Looking back, I realize I missed too many of Lyndall's milestones. Her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. Moments that I only learned about through Eleanor's stories and photographs. As the business grew, I found myself more and more distant from my daughter, and it seemed like she grew further away from me. By the time I had the time to make things right, it was too late. Lyndall was already a teenager, withdrawn, distant, resentful. She no longer wanted to spend time with me. I tried to make things right. I suggested family trips. I tried to take an interest in her hobbies, but she always rejected me. One day, when I offered to pay for a summer camp she was passionate about, she shot back, "You think you can just buy my love? Where were you when I really needed a father?" She yelled. That was when the reality hit me. I had missed too much. I couldn't go back in time. I couldn't fix the past. I could only try to be a better father now, but Lyndall wasn't interested. She used her childhood as an excuse for everything that went wrong in her life. When she met Richard, I immediately saw trouble. He was older than her, persuasive and eloquent, but I saw the same greed in his eyes that I had seen in failed businessmen. "He's using you." I warned her after their 3rd date. "You didn't even give him a chance," she yelled at me. "You just don't want me to be happy." Richard quickly figured out how to turn Lyndall against me, and within 6 months, they were married.